I can see no one in the chat confirming if they can hear. Derek, are you able to hear me? You can give a thumbs up. Martha, are you able to hear me? Or Evelyn, are you able to hear me? You are all welcome. Let me also confirm with the people who have if they can hear me. Hello, goodness. Can you hear me? Just need to confirm that.
Yes, please, I can hear you. Good to see you.
Oh, that is very good.
Yeah.
So goodness, I'll be presenting something then at the end, after people give some feedback, or before people give feedback, I would like you to also come and add on, because from your experience in this field, I'm sure you are well versed with all the things I'm going to talk about. So I'd like to thank each and everyone who has joined the call. Once again, my name is Joshua Omunuk. I'm from Uganda. And I thank you so much people who have been with us throughout this training. This is our training number 4. At first, we began by studying the policy landscape. You know how policies are formed, how policies come into place. From some concepts of policy landscape, we went to policy analysis methods just to help us get an understanding of how are these policies evaluated and how do these policies affect our communities. Next, we studied about research design and research data analysis, because research was one of the subtopics we studied in policy analysis. And in all these things, we have been studying them in relation to adaptation finance. Yeah, the next thing that we are doing today is understanding climate science. I'll just be sharing some few brief things about climate science so that you're able to understand how the concepts of climate move about. And yeah, I think it will be an interesting meeting. So I'll be sharing my screen, and I request you be attentive, and so that at the end we can have an interaction. Yeah, because I wouldn't like it to be one-sided, but just as you've been the previous trainings, I'm sure even this one you're going to be very, very interactive. Thank you very much. Can you all see the screen that I've shared? Hello?
Yes, please. We can see.
All right, thank you. So, goodness, you help me check the messages in the chat in case I ask something, you can give a feedback. Okay, thank you very much. So today we are going to study about climate science to understand, because we have heard so much about climate change. So I would like us to understand the science behind climate change. You'll be hearing so many concepts which have been heard in the past, but I'd like us to know how these things come about. Is it a fact? Is it a myth? Things of that nature. So I hope by I hope by the end of this training, you'll be able to understand all these things. So I'll be starting with some concepts. So it's important for us to understand the concepts of climate science, because if you start studying climate science, it's too deep, it's too wide. And if you start studying the policies of climate change, climate adaptation, you'll observe that politics is involved in this climate change thing. So meaning you have to understand these things first from the climate science point of view, then the role politics also plays. But today we shall focus mostly on the climate science, where this all stems from. Some of the concepts you'll be hearing, things like the Industrial Revolution. Some of us on the call, I think you've studied history and you're familiar with this concept, the Industrial Revolution, then the IPCC, global warming, greenhouse gases. I think that you're not interested. Greenhouse gases, things like pH, things like Arctic ice, because I know on the call there are some Arctic angels. You're welcome to the call, and things like methane. Things like carbon dioxide, volcanic emissions, loss and damage, resilience, adaptation 1.5. So these are concepts that are important for you to understand so that you can easily, so this climate science makes sense to you. That's set by the Industrial Revolution. The Industrial Revolution was a period of a global transition of human economy towards a more efficient and stable manufacturing process. In simplicity, prior to, there was a point in time in history where industries, machines were not something popular, or they were non-existent. But the Industrial Revolution was a phase where people began manufacturing at a high level, mechanizing farming, mechanizing production. And this phase in our history is called the Industrial Revolution. And the main source of power in this period was coal, where they would burn coal to produce energy. That was the main source of power. Another concept that I'd like to know is the greenhouse gases and the greenhouse effect. Start by greenhouse gases. As I relate it with the Industrial Revolution, when they burn coal and other activities, some gases are emitted. For example, carbon dioxide is emitted when you're burning coal. Methane is emitted in agriculture. Some other things you're seeing here are used as agriculture fertilizer. So all these things are examples of, all of them are examples of greenhouse gases. So a greenhouse effect, I'll also explain it further at that stage, but it's brought about by these greenhouse gases. So you're going to go on. Another concept is global warming. So global warming is the long-term heating of the Earth's surface. Yeah, it's as simple as that. I wouldn't like us to go in depth of understanding this concept, because if you go in depth, you might be buried in the lots of definitions. So the next thing is the IPCC, is the Intergovernmental Panel on Climate Change. The next thing is pH. pH is the acidity or alkalinity of a substance. So just bear with me as we go through the definitions. You might feel like we're going back to the chemistry class, but this will be on for a short time, then we start relating it to climate change. The next is Arctic ice. This is ice on the north and the south pole of the globe. Then 1.5 carbon footprint. So now I'm going to start explaining. Climate science. So climate science, basically, from this concept that we've studied, I'm going to connect each and everything and help us build how this climate change came about. So at first, I'll start with the concept of global warming. First, to understand what is global warming. Global warming is when the greenhouse gases form a blanket around the globe, around the atmosphere. And whenever we emit more gases, the blanket becomes thick and thick. So when the radiation from the sun enter the earth, some radiation don't make their way back, and some heat is trapped within the Earth's atmosphere. You can take an example of when you've covered yourself with a blanket. The temperature inside the blanket keeps on increasing over and over time. Before the Industrial Revolution, there's a layer of carbon dioxide around the planet, which keeps the planet just stable. But the more industrialization occurred, more emissions went into the atmosphere. This layer became thick and thick, and thereby trapping more heat, which has to be emitted to space. So that's phenomenon of the Earth starting to warm as a result of greenhouse gases around it is called the greenhouse effect. For the few of you who practice agriculture, I think you know a greenhouse where they plant crops into a shade, and the shade gets warm, and these plants can grow faster because they grow both daytime and nighttime. And that's just a basic of a greenhouse effect. So, and how does this warming of the planet, how is it bad to the atmosphere? Because someone might be wondering, even before the Industrial Revolution, there was carbon dioxide in the atmosphere. There were volcanicity. There were so many things. Here's an example of volcanoes. All the volcanoes in the world release less carbon than us, the humans on the world. Just the one we release by breathing. Meaning, what these volcanoes has been releasing is just stable. It's not beyond the levels beyond the levels which can keep the atmosphere stable. So now that we have gone beyond and the Earth is warming. When the Earth warms, now I'm going to talk about the Arctic ice. This Arctic ice starts melting. It melts slowly, then the icebergs start breaking. So as it's melting, it increases the sea levels. That's how you've been hearing some concepts of the sea levels are rising because of climate change. So that's the simple relationship, how this warming of the climate leads to the sea level rise. Another example, and another bad thing with the emitting of too much carbon dioxide in the atmosphere, it increases the acidity of the ocean water. And when the acidity of the that is the pH. When the acidity of the ocean water is increased, it destroys the biodiversity. That's another way. These excess carbon emissions are not good, and they lead to climate change. Next thing is methane. You may be wondering, how is methane in the equation? Methane mostly is released in the agricultural processes. Methane is released in the agricultural processes. Like, for instance, these ruminant animals, when they're digesting their food, they release too much methane in the atmosphere. Also, the use of fertilizer in agriculture releases other types of greenhouse gases.
Recording in progress.
Greenhouse gases in the atmosphere. Yeah. Let me go on. Another concept I'd like you to know is the carbon footprint. So by knowing how these emissions of each country lead to climate change, this gives birth to a concept called carbon footprint. Carbon footprint briefly means how much carbon a country has emitted. For instance, in Uganda, it can be measured into the tons of carbon Uganda has emitted. So when you hear of concepts of Africa is responsible to about 4% of global emissions, that is basically the carbon footprint of Africa, meaning the global north has a higher carbon footprint than Africa. So that gives the birth of the concept called carbon footprint. The IPCC, how is this important in climate science? The IPCC, it's like, from this we get the IPCC report. The IPCC report, it's like a report published by the United Nations. It's like indicating the state of climate change, how much warming has occurred and what we need to do, how far away from the tipping points, things of that nature. might wonder, is climate change real? This is a question that you can ask. I think for this, I'll first keep it open. From what you observe in your communities, do you think climate change is real? So goodness, I'd like you to check out for some responses in the chat. For now, I'll be muting myself.
Okay, thank you, Joshua. So we would like to hear from the participants your thought about climate change, if it's real or not, or what is your ideology when it comes to climate change in your various community. If you are raising your hands, you can do that. We'll call you. If you are putting on the chat, also you can also do that. So while I'm waiting for that, I would like to share my own thought about climate change. I think my first experience about climate change was during my studies, when I experienced about 42-degree weather condition where I schooled, and that was very hot. I think that was what led me to making research about climate change. And then that was when I now knew the cost of what we were experiencing, because we were closer to the Sahara desert. So we had encroachment of the desert from the region where I schooled. So that is my own story. And I think climate change, and I know very well that climate change is real. So we would like to hear from us if you want to share with us about climate change from your various communities. Yes, or should I call out someone? Deborah, are you speaking?
I don't know my is my mic up on? Can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you.
Oh, okay. Good morning from Nigeria and good afternoon to the rest of the people from the Eastern Africa. Oh, from my own side, I would say climate change is real. And my own personal experience that made me, basically from my undergraduate studies, my studies was related to that. So I was aware of it because definitely we're being taught in school. But then after my studies, that's after my undergraduate studies, because at first I never had interest, because I had a mindset that I would, after the stop my undergraduate, I'm going to switch to another career path. But then I got an interest somehow during my service year. I think sometimes in 2019 or 2020. I think when uh, a flood that happened in Abuja killed, like it swept away. I think, is it a director of one ministry or a meeting? I think a director, yes. Director was on his way going to work with his driver, and then it rained heavily. It happened around in Abuja. I cannot remember the location. And then it my then after that incident, I think the flood swept him and the driver, and he died. So after that incident, it dawned on me that this climate change itself it's already coming closer to my doorstep, and there's more reason for people to be informed and be aware and having the knowledge of it from the school. So I decided to start volunteering. Yeah, so this is my little story and experience.
Thank you so much, Deborah, for sharing that with us. We have one from Pauline. She's saying that planting seasons have changed so much, despite us having 2 seasons, which before were predictable. It's becoming harder to merely rely on the seasons for the farmers. Thank you so much, Pauline. That is very correct. Because even here in Nigeria, we are also having change of rain pattern. So that is very correct. Maybe, okay, we have Sadiq who want to also share with us. Sadiq, you have the mic.
Okay, good morning, everyone. Let me start by telling my story, why
Sadiq,
I wanted to join.
Aminu, please proceed.
Okay, can you hear me? Hello? Hello, can you hear me?
It seems
yes, we can. Yes, we can. You can go ahead, Sadiq.
Okay. Good morning, everyone. My name is Abubakar Sadiq. I will start by telling my story why I started to be a climate change advocate. It's last year, around September, around May 2021, when we were expecting rain. It comes to be what they call this thing, sand rain, because the whole of the city was covered in Yola. It's 3 p.m. You might say it's around 8 p.m. at night. So I started making research on it, and I now see it's the effect of desert encroachment. And secondly, my dad have a farm, a very large farm, where some people, let me say some IDP, some people that lives in IDP camp near our village used to like farm there. So one day we just went there and see all the trees are cut down by those people. They were saying that they use those trees for charcoal. It's almost around 50 trees that were cut down in a day, and they use it for charcoal. Lo and behold, when rain comes, the whole of the fences in that village, because they use thatch as fence, the whole of the fences are down because there are no windbreakers. So after that, I said there's need for me to like be telling these people, it's not just making money, you need to preserve the ecosystem. So some of them don't even know the causes, the dangers of cutting down trees. So that's why that's one of the reasons why I see there's need to like be telling people about climate change. Climate change really exists, and we are feeling it because here in Yola, our weather is like sometimes we even reach 45 degrees. The heat is too much, and it's really surprising to see that the rain that we are expecting in August is now in October. So everything has drastically changed. I could remember throughout the first 2 weeks of August, there's no rain. So mostly, most of the farms have even spoiled. The farms that they have already like planted and started germinating, they have already spoiled because of lack of rain. And automatically it means the planting season have changed. So the rain that we are expecting in August is now in October. So I think climate change is here, and we need to advocate to the people to stop doing things that will continue denigrating the ecosystem. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Sadiq. So I think we have Nicodemus Cooper and somebody else. So please, you have 1 minute each. Thank you. Nicodemus.
Good morning, everyone. I hope I'm audible.
Yes, please proceed.
Yes, of course, climate change is real. I come from a small village called Lokwabe in Botswana in the Kalahari. And it's a region that is extremely affected by climate change, having the region been dry originally ever since I grew up, and the vegetation has really changed extremely, where we hardly find rains. You know, there were times where, you know, there was availability of water because of significant rains, but you don't see that anymore. And we have a lot of pans which are dry, which we used to harvest after, you know, significant rains. Would even harvest salt from those pans back then, but that has come to a complete halt because we hardly find rain, and the temperatures can even go up to 47 degrees. I remember I visited Northern Cape 2 years ago, that is in South Africa, in a place called Pella. I thought we had the most high one in Botswana, but in Pella it was 52 degrees in 2019. Yeah, that was 2019 December. So this, it clearly shows that it is real. We can't ignore it, and we really need agents like ourselves to advocate for it. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Nicodemus, for sharing that with us. Samuel Edet, you have the floor. Thank you.
All right. Good morning, everyone. I want to believe that I'm audible enough. Of course, climate change is real. I've been opportunity to stay both in the northern parts of Nigeria, the south, and the west. Now, in the northern parts of the Nigeria, due to high rates of temperature, now we have discovered that a lot of people do not have cooling van or cooling system that can help them adopt or live comfortably. And then not just human being, looking at crops. When the temperature is high, even crops are being affected. And then also even human health as well. Then coming down to the southern parts of the country, that is Nigeria, we now discover that excessive flood damage a whole lot of agricultural products, and then because of that, house, community, and then the whole place are being flooded in such a way that nothing can be done about that. This was one of the things that drew my interest to do more research about climate change, and then to also get more awareness and idea about it. And then because of that and the passion I have for it, I now decided to join the advocacy to raise awareness, because a lot of people are not aware of climate change. They just believe that it's a normal system or it's a normal way of life. So climate change is real.
Thank you so much, Samuel. So thank you everyone for your responses. Before we go back to our speaker, we have this response from Davis. She's saying that climate change is real. For me, there was a time while growing up that flooding affected even our drinking water. It caused serious erosion and washed away some of our vegetable plants in the compound. Flooding in southern Nigeria is terrible. Sometimes we don't even go to school for weeks. I'm from Nigeria and live in southern part of and live in southern part. Thank you so much, going there. Joshua, over to you. Thank you so much.
Oh, thank you very much, Goodness. I'll be sharing my screen once again, and I finalize. Basically, I'd like to share with you from what I've taught, what I would like you to take as a takeaway, and what you can add in your presentations, in your speech, when you're addressing journalists, when you're pitching for proposals, mostly to address this issue of adaptation and resilience, how you can fuse the climate science into whatever you'll be doing. Thank you.
Na karɓo ne. Na karɓo. Wanda zan sa a wannan ɗin.
All right, so I'd like you to take away from today is the concept of greenhouse gases. Let me first mute this person. Yeah, they're muted. Greenhouse gas emissions, it's a concept you need to understand and how they come about. Basically, we get greenhouse gases from human activity. Then the next phase, we get the greenhouse effect, which results into global warming. These are basic steps that you can grasp to understand the basic flow of climate science. And all the solutions that are being brought about, all they address this cycle. For instance, if you bring about electric cars, they'll be cutting down. Their aim is to cut down the greenhouse gas emissions. If you bring about loss and damage finance, it's help to people to help them get out of the problems they've got into as a result of global warming. So in all these policies, basically have this simple flow in mind that from greenhouse gases, we get the greenhouse effect, then we get the global warming. Another thing that I would like you to know is the fact that volcanic eruptions only emit 1% as much CO2 as we emit, we who breathe. Meaning that sometimes this thing could be brought up to get you off balance. Let me say you're pitching that lots of emissions are causing global warming, then someone tells you that, but volcanoes have been emitting even before humans existed. So this is just a good fact to know about. Then also another concept of sea level rise that I would like you to understand is like when the ice melts, the water in the sea increases and the snow in the poles reduces. This snow in the poles helps to cool the earth, but also it traps the excess water, meaning when it melts, more water is getting into the sea. Also, when the sea is heated, the water expands. It's also something which is about to sea level rise. Yeah, then how carbon dioxide is bad for the sea. Lots of CO2 in the atmosphere causes the sea to acidify. It becomes acidic. Some people like from Mombasa and other coastal areas are able to see this effect on their land. Then another fact that Arctic ice has reduced by 40% since 1978, and it is very important to us. So maybe some questions you can have in your mind. How does adaptation finance relate to climate science? These are questions that goodness I'd like us to get some responses in the chat, but it will be like for a minute. How does adaptation finance relate to climate science? Is climate change visible in my community? This one we have had responses already. Can I make some changes for my community? And is climate science important to my community? So maybe I'll give my submission to how climate adaptation finance is related to climate science. I believe climate adaptation finance addresses different parts of this cycle of the climate science, just as we have studied it in this lecture. So goodness, I'd like you to take over the floor and you can see what responses will be on these questions. Thank you, goodness.
Thank you so much, Joshua. So from the participants, we have the question on the screen. How does adaptation finance relate to climate science? And how does it reverse this cycle? We'd like you to share your thoughts on the chat. If you want to speak, I can give you some seconds to speak. And
So we already responded to the second question. Climate change visible in our community. Yes. Okay. We're still waiting for your responses. Okay. So we have this response from Nicodemus again. He's saying that climate change is real. This has also affected the traditional way of lives where communities looked forward to plowing season during rainy season. Not anymore. Climate has come unpredictable, and if sorry, it seems I'm missing this. And if does rain, it is usually extremely windy, hence damaging households, which in Botswana is classified as a natural disaster, meaning
Hello, goodness, I can't hear you.
oh, sorry, my mic has been muted all this while. So sorry about that. So um, I've talked about Nicodemus Cooper, where he said that climate change is real. This has also affected the traditional way of lives where communities look forward to plowing season during rainy seasons. Not anymore. Climate has become unpredictable, and and so does rain. It is usually extremely windy, hence damaging household, which in Botswana is classified as a natural disaster, meaning that communities are left to pick up the pieces. Thank you so much, Nicodemus. Samuel Edet also is saying that okay, yes. So Samuel Edet also is saying that adaptation finance links closely to climate science, addressing funds required for communities to adapt to climate impact. That is so correct. Science informs impact assessment, cost estimation, priority setting, and evidence-based decisions. It monitors projects, aids policy negotiations, and ensures effective funding utilization, aligning resources with climate challenges for resilience building. Thank you, Samuel Edet. Pauline, oh, okay. So, let me say the question again. Is what is the relation between climate change and climate finance adaptation? Hope I'm correct, Joshua.
Okay, I think let me share the question on the screen.
Okay, thank you. Yes, so the question is on the screen. How does adaptation finance relates to climate science, and how does it reverse the cycle? So that is the question. If you want to speak, you can indicate. We'll give you the mic. If you want to write in the chat box, we'll also take it from there. And then we have another question. Can I make some changes in my community? So we'd like to hear from you if there are changes that you feel you can make in your community. And then the fourth question is, how is climate important to my community? So we would like to hear from you. Yeah. So we have this response from Aikirize Desire. And she is saying that adaptation finance is essential for addressing climate change impact and helping vulnerable communities build resilience to climate change. Thank you so much, Desire, for that response. And it is very correct, because without climate finance, without adaptation finance, communities won't be able to build resilience and then adapt to climate change. Okay, so we have Deborah. Deborah, you have the floor. Please, you can unmute and speak.
Okay. Oh, can you all hear me? Hello? Can you hear me?
Yes, please. We can hear you. Yes, please.
Okay, I would say adaptation finance is very important for especially communities that are vulnerable, because it's one of the things that is necessary for them to they need fundings so that they can be able to build resilience as well, and also so that projects can be carried out. Some projects which requires sensitization and adaptation strategy, to train them on adaptation strategy and mitigation approach, such as adaptation strategies for the farmers. You know, there are innovations recently that equips farmers, give them the knowledge on tree plantings, alongside with their farm system, in order to build resilience for their farming system. So project adaptation finance helps for vulnerable communities to be able to access fundings in which some of these researches and projects can be carried out, and they for these vulnerable communities to equip them on how to build resilience and being able to mitigate the impact of climate change. And then there's the second question, I think, from Joshua. The second question is, I think, did you say what changes can you make in your community? If I'm not mistaken.
Yes, please.
Okay, as for me, like I have an interest with working with farmers to help them build resilience in their farming system through agroforestry. And agroforestry is like tree planting alongside with farming and the mixture of farming and tree system. So I think the trees help them to build resilience in their farm system, either the crop farmers or head farmers. So my recent my passion is working with farmers, and which I am trying to start doing. I want to see how I can I've started the advocacy on farmers having trees in their farmland, which can help in so many ways. Yeah, reduction of the winds, the impact of winds, as well as erosion. There are some trees that are resilient to that they helps in erosion, water drain. So informing farmers on some of those things, sensitizing them and equipping them. So this is what I have started doing. So for my community, I am thinking of doing more of it. So this is my answer to the question.
Thank you so much, Deborah, for that response. Evelyn, I don't know if you're also speaking. Evelyn Acham, can you hear me? Are you also speaking? Okay, so I think that is all for now. We'll still hear from us as we proceed. We'll hand over the mic to the next speaker. Tato, you have the mic. Please come in. Tato, please, can you speak up since we're not hearing you?
Are you able?
Joshua, please.
Hi, goodness. Am I audible?
Yes. Yes, but it seems you are breaking.
Okay. I think maybe network issues. I just wanted to highlight and share more on what Deborah was talking about on using climate science to back up your community work, and what we intend on doing as a network with the upcoming Africa Climate Week, which is an event that builds up to COP28 in Dubai. So we'll be launching some digital campaigns and in-person actions. You can contextualize the information according to your respective communities, and more details will be shared. For those activists that won't be able to travel to Kenya, we will be having digital actions and Twitter storms where we'll be sharing more information on adaptation finance, the importance of enabling it for our respective communities in Africa to adapt to the various impacts of climate change. Like Nico Dimas was also sharing about the issue happening in Okavango and South Africa, and how we can guide or mobilize more people in our respective communities, especially young people, to get the message out there. Because you find that in Africa and all these funds that are going out, our world leaders and politicians are more focused on development. And development for them means building cities, building roads, which isn't necessarily the same context that we are in. And we are the ones who are in the front line. We are the ones who know how much our people are suffering. So let's also try and mobilize more on that. There will be graphics made available for us to utilize and share. There will be, on the day of the launch, we'll have at least an hour of having a Twitter storm, meaning that for that 1 hour, say from 9 a.m. to 10 a.m., we will be busy on Twitter, sharing messages about our respective communities and what we want, those powerful messages. And there will be different kinds of graphics being made by the media team. So I think that's all from my end. Get ready for the Africa Climate Week Twitter storms and campaigns as we're building momentum to COP. Thank you. Back to you, Goodness.
Thank you so much, Tato, for sharing that with us. Just to lay more emphasis on what you have said. The African Climate Week is coming alongside with the African Climate Summit, and it's taking place in Nairobi. So please do well to engage our various campaigns. We'll be rolling out the different campaigns using graphics. See how to be available to share, to retweet, to inform others about this, because this is a way of adding a voice to your community, of also speaking up for your community. And the Climate Week will be what we'll use to hold the government going to COP28 in UAE. So please, we have our chat. If you have not joined the chat, we'll share the link with you so that you join our chat, so I get more details from that. So I think for now, that will be the end for today's presentation. Okay, Tato, you're on the spot. You have the floor.
Thank you, Goodness. I wanted to say that for those who are maybe not on the chat, perhaps they can refer back to the contact persons for the link and for more information. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Tato. Joshua, do you have something else to add before we close the call for the day?
No, I don't have anything to add.
Okay, thank you so much, Joshua. Before we close the session, we normally have. Okay, Deborah, the contact person is the people who have been sending you the link for the training. So you reach out to the person for that information. Thank you, Deborah. So before we close, please don't forget to connect to our social media handles, Agape Earth Coalition. The spelling is on your screen, Agape Earth Coalition. We are on Twitter, we're on Instagram, we're on Facebook, we're on LinkedIn. Please connect and then get more information from us. And our rituals, we would like to take photographs. Joshua, please, you help us from your end because of my device having some problem here. We'd like to take photographs, so please, you turn on your mic. Turn on your camera so I can take a group photograph. Please, we employ you to turn on your cameras. I can see lovely and beautiful faces this morning. Wow. This is the first day of the week and we're all looking very handsome and beautiful. Joshua, let me know if you are ready. Pauline is saying that you disabled the video, so please you check from your end, please, if you can work on that for her. Pauline,
Okay. Can she try to unlock her? I'll get a pop-up message here.
Okay.
Or she can raise up her hand and I see her here.
Pauline, Abija, okay.
Yes.
Hand is up.
All right. All right, so I think everyone you have access to put your video on. Okay, we can take the photo now.
So please turn on your video so that I can take the group photograph. Okay, Joshua, you can proceed, please.
Yeah, I've taken. Thank you.
Oh, great. Thank you so much. So thank you everyone for joining the training today. See you on the next training. Sorry, I think there was a miscommunication for the training today. The timing was supposed to be 10 a.m., but it was scheduled for 11 a.m. So sorry for the miscommunication there. We'll see how to work on that next time so that we don't have this miscommunication. So our next training will be on the 1st of September. We'll also share the link to everybody that will be joining the training. And thank you so much, and do have a lovely week ahead. Thank you so much.
Thank you, goodness. Thank you,
Goodbye,
Joe. Thank
everyone.
you, everybody.
Thank
Having
you. Thank
on.
you.
Bye.
Thank you, Tato.
Bye.
Yeah, bye.